So we begin this morning with the fallout from the federal case against Hunter Biden after his plea deal with the Justice Department unraveled in court.
Hunter and his legal team arrived at the courthouse yesterday. The plan was to formally submit a guilty plea to 2 charges of failing to pay taxes. Now, under the previous agreement with prosecutors, Biden would have received probation and no prison time. His outstanding federal firearms charge would also be resolved if certain conditions were met. But the federal judge overseeing the case said she was not ready to accept the plea agreement, questioning its legality. Instead, Judge Noriega asked both parties to file legal briefs explaining why the gun charges deal should be included in the plea agreement. Now, they each have 30 days to submit those arguments. Because of these developments, Biden entered a not guilty plea. He is expected to reverse that plea if the new terms of the deal are accepted by the judge. A lot to cover. We have NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos standing by, as well as NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli. Mike, let's start with you. This ongoing legal battle has no doubt been a challenge for President Biden and the White House. So how is the White House responding to really the fallout of this deal?
Yeah, Joe, I was outside that courthouse all day yesterday. Quite a dramatic, unexpected series of developments. But as it relates to how the White House is responding, it's really been the status quo. You see White House officials emphasizing the same 2 things over and over again. The first, which is as it relates to the investigation into his son, but also to his potential political rival, Donald Trump. The president is not interfering whatsoever in any of the decisions being made about prosecutions at the Justice Department. There's an absolute firewall to assure the independence of the Justice Department in these probes. But specifically and unique, of course, to the investigation into his son, the White House continues to emphasize that he is looking at this only through the lens of a loving father. Take a listen to Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday addressing this while these proceedings were happening in Delaware.
Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and this was a personal matter for him. As we have said, the president, the first lady, they love their son, and they support him as he continues to rebuild his life. This case was handled independently, as all of you know, by the Justice Department under the leadership of a prosecutor appointed by the former president, President Trump.
Now, Joe, a reminder of what was so historic about this event yesterday. This was the first time a Justice Department was bringing charges against the child of a sitting president. And to really underscore that point, when you walked into the courthouse yesterday, when Hunter Biden walked into the courthouse yesterday, the first thing he saw on the wall to his right was a framed photo of his father, as is in every federal building across the country. So a really poignant moment, really, for anybody who was there yesterday. The other part we should note is that the president had no public events yesterday in which he could have been asked to respond to these developments. Today, he has several, so it is possible the president can engage on this question today.
Danny, let's bring you in here and take a closer look at some of the decisions made by this judge. She focused on one crucial question, or seemed to rather, whether or not this deal would prevent Hunter Biden from facing any additional criminal charges, perhaps related to some ongoing investigations in terms of foreign lobbying. There was this moment where you had Hunter Biden's team saying our understanding of this deal is it exempts him from any of the legal woes that he could be facing. Prosecution saying, no, this just has to do with the tax charges and the gun deal, nothing else. So walk us through why you think the judge focused so much on that. She seemed to also have a lot of questions about what her role would be down the road.
How did the parties agree on a deal if they didn't agree on the specific terms of the deal and they weren't even aware that they weren't in agreement? I've looked at the language of the pretrial diversion agreement, and I can see where the confusion came from. The language says the government agrees not to prosecute Hunter Biden for any of the crimes encompassed, and that's an interesting word, by a list of different things that they attached to the pretrial diversion agreement. So if I'm the defense attorney, in fairness, I might have looked at that too and said, okay, that covers everything. And maybe the government, now I don't think they were being sneaky. I think they just believed that what they put in the language spoke for itself, and that left it open for them to continue investigating. Barbara McQuaid was on last night. She said her office would typically use language, and I'm paraphrasing based on memory, government will not prosecute for all crimes of which it is currently aware. So you can see the language differs a lot. But look, there's an entire body of contract law that is based on people thinking they agreed on something and realizing later on they didn't agree on the actual terms.
So the judge also questioned the constitutionality of the separate gun deal. Both sides originally agreed to resolve Hunter Biden's federal firearms charge if he carried out the probation sentence for the 2 tax misdemeanors What was the judge worried about here?
I got to criticize the government here, and to some degree the defense as well, for not seizing on this language. They should have known right away this was problematic. That's not how pretrial diversion works. And look, I'm not being glib, but really, the reality is the government, the federal government, almost never enters into pretrial diversion. So maybe it's because they're just not familiar with these agreements. In the state courts for low-level crimes, pretrial diversion is the rule of the day. It happens thousands of times every day. In the federal government, by contrast, there are many districts historically that didn't even have pretrial diversion. So the problem was that the admissibility and being able to stay in the program is entirely up to the government, the executive branch. The judge should have nothing to do with it. She was exactly right.
And, Mike, Republicans are already responding to the judge's criticism of the deal. House Leader Kevin McCarthy had this to say following the news of the deal breakdown.
You watched when the IRS spoke that they did the statute of limitations running out on the most serious tax provisions with the Biden family. During that talk, they said the Biden family was willing to waive that. So I'd like to see the Biden family waive and not worry about the statute of limitations and look at everything just like every other American would have to do. There shouldn't be two justice systems in America, and hopefully today that's what's being done.
So, Mike, what does this mean for ongoing investigations into Hunter Biden and the pressure it could have on the president?
Yeah, I think the political pressure is only going to ramp up because of this. The White House was clearly poised yesterday for a pivot point. They were ready to hopefully have this in the rearview mirror so they could then make an argument, as we started even to hear from White House officials, that while Republicans were focused on attacking the president's family, he was focused on doing what was right for American families, focused on his agenda, not on this. So one of the primary criticisms Republicans have been lobbying about this case was that there seemed to be some preferential treatment of the president's son. If this had been an open and shut proceeding yesterday without any complications, it would have underscored that it was just business as usual. But the fact that there were so many complications only gives fuel to Republicans to continue to make this argument that there is special treatment here, not just of the president's son, but of his potential political opponent again. And so that's going to only inflame these Republican probes.
All right, Mike Memoli, Danny Cevallos, thank you both.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.